Canadian universities must create diversity plans or risk losing research funding. Yeah, I'm gonna need a drink. The Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, which has control over the approval of applications for Canada Research Chair positions, has given universities less than 2 years to find ways to recruit more women and minorities for those chair positions under penalty of cut funding. The new policy comes after a review process showed a lack of progress from existing efforts, and keep that in mind, existing efforts to get more women, minorities, people with disabilities, and Indigenous people appointed to research chairs. Our Science Minister, Kirsty Duncan, told the Canadian press she was dismayed about data she received showing universities had not improved the rate at which they recruited women for the lucrative research jobs, and was prepared to force their hand. The rate at which they recruit women and the existing effort to get more women are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. So the effort exists to recruit more women, but women apparently aren't biting, and the numbers aren't moving. At least the numbers aren't moving as much as the SSHRC wants. So, first off, they're about to penalize the universities for a thing over which they actually have no control. They can incentivize till the cows come home, but they can't force women and minorities into these positions. They can't force them to apply. Now, they're talking about minorities and disabled people and Indigenous people, which somehow are separate from regular old minorities, according to this article. But the article and our science minister have both decided to focus on women, and so will I. The chairs, the Canada Research Chair positions, are actually broken into 2 tiers. The more experienced Tier 1 position, which is more valuable, and the emerging researcher position, or Tier 2 position. Women account for just 17% of the more lucrative Tier 1 jobs and 37% of the Tier 2 jobs. I imagine what they want is 50-50 across the board, but there's a number of reasons why that's just retarded. First, just look at the breakdown of Tier 1 and Tier 2 positions. Apparently, women having done the Tier 2 positions, 37% don't go back to try and get a Tier 1 position. Otherwise, there'd be more than 17%. Right? You have to have some experience with the... You have to have done a Tier 2 job to get up to a Tier 1 job. And they don't go. Otherwise, it would be approximately the same. 30-odd% and 30-odd%, no? Forget the fact that the application rate to STEM fields, in particular, can be as skewed as 90-10 male-female. Women make up almost 60%, or is it a little more than 60% in Canada, of all university students. And yet somehow men represent 2 out of 3 applications to the chair positions. So even though men are seem to dominate the STEM fields, and women dominate basically everything else. The everything else research positions, the Canada Research Chair positions, the applications for those positions are still dominated by men. So the women who go through the programs aren't applying to the research positions. How do you incentivize them? They're 60% of the students. If they aren't already 50% of the applications to the chairs, how are you supposed to change that? How are you going to punish the university for the women not doing that? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it's so fucking retarded. I was looking into male-female education STEM, and I found that men are more likely to apply to STEM even with lower math grades from high school. Right? That men who get under 80 in their maths in high school are more likely than women who got 80 to 89 in their high school maths to apply to STEM fields. Right, and I'm going to see if I can post this chart. It's like a slant. Like perfect. That men are just more likely to apply to STEM. Women just don't want to, even if they have the math grades to do it. Right? They take math all through high school, get great grades, and then don't apply to STEM fields. How do you make them apply to STEM fields? Now, while I found the grade scores for high school mathematics, what I couldn't find was high school mathematics classroom demographic breakdowns. I don't know if they don't record it, if I'm just too lazy to really get into the research here, but they don't tell me how many girls take high school math up to grade 12. So all I have to go on is my high school, my friends and sisters' high schools, experience. And that's anecdotal. But let me tell you, in Canada, we have to take math to grade 10. After grade 10, math is an elective. Now, I took math after grade 10. And, grade 9, grade 10, your demographic breakdown is about 50-50 male-female. Grade 11, it was 80-20. Maybe it was 90-10. Very, very few girls took math. How do you make them take math? Even if they got 90s in grade 10 math. They just don't take it as the elective after that. What are you supposed to do? By the end of high school, the students with grade 12 math are mostly boys. Like, the SSHRC is asking for a thing that isn't possible. And they're going to punish people who don't have the power and should not have the power to do a thing that they just aren't capable of doing. It's not up to them to do it. But they're going to get punished for it anyway. Looking at the Canada Research Chair's website in the About Us, they have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. I don't even know if I want to get into this. Achieving a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive Canadian research enterprise is essential to creating the excellent, innovative, and impactful research necessary to seize opportunities and for responding to global challenges. No, it fucking isn't. Imagine for a moment that all the Canada Research Chair positions are dominated by black lesbians. That black lesbians just happen to be the absolutely best qualified people for each and every chair position. And there's about 2,000 of them. Now imagine that each and every Canada Research Chair position is dominated by what amounts to an exact demographic representation of Canada over the 2,000 chair positions. Regardless of which of those things is true, you're going to get the same quality of research out of both groups because they're all the best people. So it doesn't matter which is true. All that matters is you have the best people, not that you have the most diverse or the most accurate representation of the demographics within Canada. When it comes to research, social justice, political correctness, equity, diversity, inclusivity are as meaningless as the junk dangling between your legs. As meaningless as what junk you want dangling in your face. As meaningless as the color of your skin. Good research is good research. And what junk you carry, what junk you like, your skin, have no effect on that. Have no effect on your ability to be as objective as possible when doing your research. Those things are meaningless when it comes to research. Relevant links to shit I said in the description? Maybe. I'm Irving Twin. Like, subscribe, or don't. It's a free country. At least it used to be.